In a world overrun with the fake, delusional, and disingenuous, he stands as a beacon of truth. He is Abuki Cabal. You are listening to Abuki Cabal.
Welcome to the Abuki Cabal Show.
What's going on, everybody? Back at it again. Got another juicy story for you guys. Please like, share, and subscribe, and hit that notification button, because my channel is not being shouted out with the notifications. The notifications are not going through. I'm hearing that from a lot of people. So if you enjoy the show, support me with a little notification, a little like, So, we're going to talk about Andrew Tate. He is the man of the hour. And Richard Reeves did a article on him back in October of last year, and we're gonna look at that and see what he had to say about our illustrious Mr. Tate. I know BGS just did a breakdown of what he thinks about Tate, and I agree. I think Tate's almost like a he said he's black pill. I mean, he's almost like an anarchist, man. He's just let's just go out and let's just create some turmoil, But he is he's not a force that can be controlled, And I think that they don't like that. Women have no sway over the way he thinks or what he's gonna do or any of that. So, how do you control a man if sex is nothing to him, if money is not an issue for him, he can make these choices free of, the usual ways that men are manipulated. And I think he's starting to teach these men also about, like Kevin, Kevin was first, Tate's, doing pretty much kind of the same thing that Kevin was doing, but in a different way. He's not doing exactly like Kevin, he has his own way of explaining how these things go, and usually he makes fun of the people, especially the women who have these inflated, beliefs about, their value and, what they have to offer the world, let alone a man, and when they have to say these things out loud, it just becomes really stupid. It doesn't even sound right. I really think that, because the message has been ignored, largely coming from black folks. Now you have Tate. I'm not sure whether Tate's, mixed with a little bit of us. I'm not sure. I haven't looked into his background. He appears to be, but that they're not ready for that. They're not ready to hear that from a person of his persuasion and Pearly. They don't know how to react with this. It's catching on like wildfire. So now you're starting to see that people are starting to actually formulate responses in order to counter the message coming from Pearly and from, Red Pill Spaces and from Andrew Tate. I mean, Andrew Tate has Europe going crazy right now. They're calling him all kinds of names. I think there's an effort to just basically discredit him and to take him out essentially because of what he's saying, because of words, because of the truth. People don't want to hear the truth. They choose these lies. They refuse to deal with these truths. But inconvenient truths are truths nonetheless. You're gonna have to deal with it one way or the other. Running around saying this is my truth is only going to take you so far. One day you're going to be faced with reality. You can only lie to yourself and to the rest of the world for so long. And I think that's the phase that we're in. Everybody's choosing to basically just lie to themselves and characterize themselves as avatars in a world like the Matrix. I mean, we really are looking like the Matrix now. Everybody's is trying to live as something other than themselves. I choose to be, a girl or not a girl or a guy or something in between, non-gendered, and everybody's just walking around like this, because who they are is not good enough. They need something else. They need the tattoos. They need something to stand out. We see this in a lot of these women. They do all these things to stand out, but by doing that, you exclude yourself from being a candidate for marriage. Nobody wants to marry a woman who's all tatted up and shit and, looking like she's from, some kind of cave people or something. Now, we see that some people can wear a lot of those tattoos and still be attractive, and then you have another person on the other side that tries to put a whole bunch of tattoos and they think it's the same thing. Well, no, some people have it, some people don't. And then the majority of guys don't like tattooed up women. So Andrew's trying to tell these women, I'm trying to tell you how men think. You can think however you want to think. But if you're not trying to understand what that man wants, what he finds attractive, and if you don't try to be that, if you're not that without trying, then you're excluded. And you can't be upset because you're excluded. It's like BGS says, wives are made. But nobody's out here teaching the old ways. Nobody's teaching these women how to be wives. When was the last time you saw a woman just walk by you and her walk was just so feminine, so attractive, that you could not, look away? Well, I can tell you it's been a long time for me. Most of the women that I see are not attractive. They are overweight. They just look hard now. These women look very, very hard, and nobody really wants to look feminine anymore. People are just going out just looking, half-assed, and it's like nobody just really even cares about, the basics, good conversation, carrying yourself in a way that that will make men want to have a conversation with you, being nice, being personable. But let's get on into this article. I'm rambling on. I usually enjoy things that Richard Reeves does, and I kind of like Andrew Tate. So we're gonna take a look at this.
Andrew Tate and the West Lost Boys. In August 2022, English teacher Kirsty Pohl took to Twitter to warn other teachers about a former kickboxer and Big Brother contestant who was spouting dangerous, misogynistic and homophobic abuse online. The culprit was, of course, Andrew Tate. Pohl was especially worried about his appeal to younger boys. As she told Sky News, they already don't know who they should be. If they're allowed emotions, if they're allowed to cry, or if they need to man up. Like what you're reading? Get the free Unheard.
Okay. Now here you have a woman who is basically, she's a teacher, but she's concerned about a man, encouraging men to be manly and to look at the world in a manly way, a masculine way. He's not telling people to be, rude to these women. He's just saying there's certain women that you don't deal with. Look at the guy, when these people, these detractors have tried to talk to him, they have never, they usually just basically talk over him. Don't let him respond. He does really well in his interviews. And he's had interviews where he's, talked to the woman kind of crazy, but it was all in fun. It was play. I'm sure you could tell when the cameras went off that he was a totally different person, but he showed that the woman, you can't manipulate me. There's nothing that you have that I want. If I choose to be with you, then I just choose to be with you based on what I find important and what I find to be appealing to me. So that is something that these people are afraid of, and they are reaching out to other people, talking about warning people about listening to words. We're supposed to be freedom of speech. You're supposed to be able to. We are supposed to talk, and we're supposed to be able to identify things that will make these boys better. But who better to teach these boys than men? But let's move on.
For daily email sign up for free. Already registered? Sign in. Tate has certainly made an impression. You will struggle to find a boy or young man who doesn't know who he is, except perhaps among the Amish. My own 20-year-old son told me at the start of this year that I needed to examine Tate's success, just as I was finishing up my book on boys and men. I ignored my son's advice, but he was right. Tate has since become a global influencer. There have been more Google searches in recent months for Andrew Tate than for recession. 6 years after being kicked off Big Brother for hitting a woman with a belt, she later claimed consensually, he is now considered such a danger to society that he has been banned from almost every social media platform. Twitter suspended him in 2017, after he said that women should bear some responsibility for being raped, and TikTok, Instagram and YouTube have followed suit. That has...
Okay. I saw that video. That video is being circulated all over Twitter about him hitting that woman with the belt, and they're making it. They're putting all kinds of narratives behind it, like that's what he's doing it every day and bringing these girls to his place and and beating them and whatnot. But like this article says, that was a consensual situation. Okay, so they're characterizing this man in ways that are causing law enforcement to look at him and other people to basically ban him from even being able to speak or be able to participate in social media platforms, which I think is just it's something that shouldn't be allowed. If there are far more people on there that are saying worse things than Andrew Tate has said on this program or on these platforms. Now, if there's something that he's said that you find to be controversial or that needs to be dealt with, then I suggest that these people meet him in a public forum and basically debate him about his position. Are there situations where people put themselves in positions that they shouldn't put themselves in? The old folks used to tell you, don't put yourself in a situation that you can't get out of. Be aware of your surroundings. Stay out of grown folks' business. If you're young, you ain't supposed to be around grown folks. You ain't supposed to be around them grown men. You're not supposed to. There were so many lessons that were taught, that Andrew Tate is basically saying in a different way, that Kevin Samuels said in a different way. My father told me things, some of the same things that Kevin said, but it just didn't resonate with me in the same way that it did with Kevin. People say, he this is your leader, your cult, and all these other things. They showed a little, picture of him with the curl and everything. If you go back and you look at a lot of men during that time, they looked really moist because everybody looked moist. Everybody had curls. Everybody was wearing these crazy shirts because that's the only thing you had to wear. That's what was the style during that time. But it looks kooky right now. So, it's easy for you to look back in time and say, wow, man, that looks really, really gay, Yeah, it did. But we didn't think that, So for you to go back and look at Kevin during that time and then think that he was gay because that's the way he was during that time, you're full of it, any more than, people are, sitting up trying to disparage, Andrew for some of the same things. They come at you and they don't want to deal with your message. They just want to destroy you and how everybody else sees you, but, like back in the 60s, if somebody had a position, then it was debated. If a scholar had a problem with what you have to say, they would debate you. You had people who were not even, huge names in the academic sectors who were debating people on social issues, and they were eloquently orated presentations of problems and potential solutions. Exposure of problems that maybe the other person wasn't able to see in the way that they should be able to see it in order to see that something is a problem in the first place. I find that a lot of people tend to listen to Tate and think that there isn't a problem in the first place. They don't think there's anything wrong with these women. They don't think anything's wrong with society and the way it is. Andrew Tate is not against marriage. He's just saying that, hey, if you don't, act responsibly before you get married, you're going to be off in a bad situation because you're going to be with a woman who may be, a chameleon or whatever the case may be. She may be a user, all these things. He's telling you about these things because if you go out into the world as a young man, you are vulnerable. Everybody seems to be okay with, the idea that these young women are vulnerable when they go out into the world. But nobody cares about the boys. The boys are not vulnerable. It's like the boys just automatically are these predators that are out here ready to spring on any potential woman out here. And that's not the way we think. That's not the way men think. There are people out here who are predatory, but the vast majority of men out here are nothing like that. And we see on all kinds of, interviews and stuff where these women come out and they just say that men are just trash. From the time that we are born, we are trash because we come up in the patriarchy and basically, therefore, we can't be trusted. So that's not real. That is a perception that's been placed out here on these women from a young age to think about men as something that as something that needs to be gotten rid of, that's of no use to you in society. None of these women even could take into consideration all of the things that men are responsible for in this society. They really think that basically men can just be disposed of. Tate, Kevin Samuels, lead attorney, BGS, Dr. Neal, Gigi, Dr. T, all these men are basically saying that enough is enough. Something needs to be done. The way we look at these things need to be looked at in a different way. Dr. Curry, he's been putting out some tweets that have been really good. If you're not following him, go on Twitter and look up Dr. Tommy Curry. Look at some of the tweets where he's exposing some of these things where, women are abusing men and nobody's doing anything about it. They just, the violence against these men is just accepted as if it's just commonplace. They say, well, they act like, well, he must have done something. He deserves whatever he got. You see all kinds of responses on social media that indicate that there is a cancer that's present in these women that are causing them to basically hate people that they've never even met, people that have never done anything to them, based off of stories that they've heard about the patriarchy. Black men are not a part of the patriarchy. They never have been. But because these people are not educated, they don't read, they don't know anything about that. They didn't look at basic history to be able to formulate an opinion on their own based on information and facts. Most of the time when you try to present this information, these women don't want to read. They don't really care about facts. They will throw statistics out and won't even know what the statistics are telling them. If the statistics are one-sided and don't even cover, black men, they'll just throw it out there and just say, I gotcha, when it doesn't even cover black men. Or the statistics they have out there will show that, black men are at the bottom of reading, of, getting jobs, all of that. And I just basically tell them that you just proved my point for me. Obviously, if black men aren't doing well, obviously the need is greater with the black men than it is with you. So why is all the money going to you and other black women, when obviously the need is there for black boys and black men, for jobs and for educational benefits and all those things? But they're all going to black women and white women, So, but they don't see anything wrong with that, because they're not coming up advocating for something that will be good for the community. They're advocating for themselves. So Tate is saying, why not be selfish? Why not look out for yourself as well? Make sure that you're okay first before you start trying to look out, for some woman. And know your prey is basically what he's saying. If you're hunting women, you need to know about women. If you're looking for a wife, you need to know about women. If you don't, you can get yourself into a bad situation. And there are a lot of bumps in that road if you get into a bad situation. Everything that you have ever amassed can be snatched from underneath you with ease. Your very nature, would be presented as if it is something that is animalistic, uncontrollable, primitive, So you'll sit up you'll end up being, trying to, change your entire personality to try to, be with this woman. Whereas these guys are saying, no, you should be able to be yourself, and that woman should accept you for being yourself. But this feminist agenda is telling men to basically, squish themselves down into a shape that is presentable to these women and be under our foot. That's what they consider to be a good man. If you hear this from, listen to how the teacher said in the beginning of this article, we got to stop this guy because these boys don't know that they can cry. They don't know that they can do this, they can do that. It's all moistness. They want more moistening into the men. And then, they make these men into men that they wouldn't even be attracted to. So you have a bunch of men out here who basically wouldn't be able to get any woman because they've been tenderized by, this belief system that is not acceptable for the raising of boys and men. Men have to have a hardness to them. Men have to be able to have an affect where they can risk themselves and risk, take risks and beat their bodies up and do things in a way to where you will render service, be a part of something greater than yourself, to be able to sacrifice for a family, for your child, for the rest of society. Sometimes, you just don't realize how many times men put their lives on the line for society, for the betterment of society. Men die so that society will continue to run in a way that's safe for boys, girls, these women, and they blow that off. Nothing is good enough. And when people speak out about it, they want them to be silent, and they will do anything to silence these people. So let's move on with this article.
And stop Tate's followers flooding the internet with his content. Videos of Andrew Tate have been viewed more than 12 billion times on TikTok. And more than 100,000 people have signed up to his £39 per month online academy Hustlers University. His videos contain a mix of extreme misogyny, with women referred to as bitches and property, irresponsible mental health messaging, including that depression isn't real, along with some sound basic advice, such as the need to do the hard things in life even when you don't feel like it. Tate himself says, I'm
gonna stop there for a minute. Listen. Sometimes, the content that we put out is not for women. So when women come in and they listen to it, they try to change it. They don't want you to, they try to basically control your mind and what you take in. Now, see, this reminds me of that Barbara Walters interview with Sean Connery, where she was saying that, why won't you play with women? Why don't you allow women into the country clubs? He's like, no, men should have their spaces. I don't like to play golf with women. I shouldn't have to be made to play golf with women. And then she talked to him about hitting his wife. Yeah, I'll smack her. I sure will. And sometimes it requires that. And that was like, she basically, in these Barbara Walters interviews were basically done to make these men look bad. She was a diehard feminist. She just passed. Don't want to speak badly of the dead, but if you go back and you look at her interviews, she was not nice. But a lot of women, my wife included, she looks up, looked up to Barbara Walters. She was in, radio and television, and she looked up to her. She thought she was groundbreaking. She did what she had to do. She stepped on people to get where she was. That's the same thing with Wendy Williams. People love Wendy Williams because she stepped on people. But look, a lot of people hate Wendy. A lot of people hated, Barbara. So the same thing is happening here. You have these people in spaces where they don't belong. These are men's spaces talking about men's issues. They should stay out. So they should have no bearing on what Tate puts out there. They're angry that people are paying to go in there and hear. But, we used to have things like the Man Show where men will watch it. Naked women will be on there, because that's what men want to see. If you don't want that, then don't go. Look, we used to have, strip clubs, gentlemen's clubs. Now you got women in there. So, but people start taking the women in there. And, now damn near every woman wants to go to the strip club with their man or without their man. So things are just changing. Men need their spaces, and we need to bring that back. We need to have men's only spaces, that are, safe for men to sit down, relax, and do the things that they do, and women may not need to be there. Sometimes definitely don't need to be there, because sometimes men need to engage with each other in a way that is productive and that is educational and that allows men to grow and be better from being around other men who are thinkers, scientists, bankers. We need to learn to smoosh with each other. We need to rub off on each other, and people who are in all kinds of occupations need to be able to go in and just be around men of other occupations, so that some of these things can be, you can take some of these people and mentor these people, and possibly do some internships with some of these guys, ensure that there are men out here who are productive. That can't be done with women around, because when women are around, men change. The way we interact with each other changes. It becomes more adversarial. A lot of that needs to stop. And the only way that's going to stop is if you have positive people out here that tell you what you're up against and what you're going to see. The potential of what you're going to see. Yeah, you're going to interact with some good girls, but then you may interact with some bitches. Bitches do exist. Women who prey on men exist. But we have these other counterculture type of organizations of women who basically say that, no, these women are all victims, and they, things just happen to them, and it was the mean old men that did it to them. But they never want to, these stories where these women are setting guys up, nice guys are going and, just trying to go take this woman on a date. She sets them up with two other men, and, they end up getting knocked in the head or shot or whatever the case may be. It's happening all the time. So these women are just basically looking at these men as prey and as disposable, and putting them in harm's way. So why is there so much, adversity thrown in front of people who are basically telling men how to avoid these obstacles? You may not like the language, but it is what it is. It's how we talk. You go out and you're around a bunch of Marines, you're going to hear fuck this, fuck that, and see, it may sound very, very, messed up to you. It may sound unprofessional to you, but that's because it's not for you. That's how, we communicated, and we got the job done. We bled, we were dirty. We went through things that men have to go through. Sometimes, they're talking about men crying and doing these things, being soft. No, sometimes you have to, tell a person that basically, no, you ain't got time to be depressed. You don't have time to sit up and cry about this. Cry about it later. We got a job to do. Okay? But see, women don't take that into consideration, because they want to coddle these boys and make these boys into something that is more malleable to their, and more receptive to their programming. But we can't allow this to happen, because we won't have any real men left. So let's move on.
Simply saying things that many men think, believe, and feel. I'm not sure that this is true. It's unlikely that most his viewers are so passionately anti-feminist. But simply dismissing Tate as a misogynist or an opportunist is not good enough, even though he is both. His appeal should instead be seen as a leading indicator of some of the genuine disorientation being felt by millions of boys and men. This male malaise is real. The symptoms can be seen in school, in the workplace, and in family life. Boys have fallen far behind girls in the classroom and on college campuses. Male wages have yet to recover from the Great Recession. And men in their 20s now earn slightly less, on average, than women of the same age. In 2 out of 5 couples, the woman earns as much or more than the man. 1 million children are growing up without any relationship with their father. The resulting dad deprivation, as Warren Farrell, author of The Boy Crisis, puts it, has clear negative effects on education, crime, health, and employment for children, especially boys.
Now, there you go again. Here you have people on the other side. You have white guys who are basically saying the same thing. There is a problem with boys, okay? So where is the funding to try to relieve the pressure that these boys are weathering? And this has been going on for a long time. This isn't new. Money is always flowing to the women, but these boys have had issues for quite some time, and men have been out screaming at the top of their lungs that we need funding. these places where, boys clubs and all these things, all that now is just, can you imagine if they said we got more boys clubs around? Women would come out and say these should be, everybody clubs. We can't just call them boys clubs, and they would get them defunded. That's the environment that we're in right now. It's crazy. But there is a problem, and this problem is being talked about by men all over the place. Some say it softly, some say it, harshly, but they're talking about the same problem.
Many of these trends are the result of the extraordinary successes of the women's movement. The educational, economic, and cultural rise of women represents perhaps the greatest liberation of the modern age. It is one we should rightly celebrate. But it does prompt the question, what about the men? Without the clear direction and social incentives of the old provider-protector model of manhood, many men are left rudderless, underpowered, drifting. Why do men account for only 30% of the young people who sign up for voluntary service overseas? Why are 43% of 25-year-old men still living with their parents, compared to just 25% of women of the same age? Why is suicide the biggest killer of British men under the age of 45?
I can tell you, some of these are economic problems. These 25-year-old men that are living with their parents, it's economic. A lot of men at that age are broke. Some of them can't find jobs. Some of them don't even know what they want to do. I mean, some of those men are going to college at 25. Going back to college at 25, still don't know, sometimes it takes you time to realize what you want to do and to get into the circles that you need to get into in order for things to happen. Sometimes boys are just late bloomers when it comes down to that. But we find that over time, boys tend to do better as they get older. But the suicide problem is definitely becoming an issue. Black men are becoming the victims of suicide at a greater rate than we've ever seen. And no one cares. In addition to that, you see, men that are just going about their merry way and being killed by police officers to the tune of thousands of people, but yet you hear women talk about, that they are being victimized more. But then when you look at the numbers, black men are victimized in greater numbers and they still don't care. Everything is about them. So let's move on.
Kirsty Pohl's comment about why boys might be drawn to Tate was absolutely right. They don't know who they should be. Tate has no such doubts. He projects masculine strength, confidence, and independence. A former kickboxer, tanned and muscular, he conducts many of his interviews shirtless. Tate's unapologetic, unvarnished masculinity is a vivid contrast to the tepid social and emotional learning classes that most boys are subjected to, where, if masculinity is discussed at all, it will be at the toxic variety. There are too many wagging fingers, not enough helping hands. Interviewing dozens of adolescent boys and young men for her book Boys and Sex, Peggy Orenstein always asked them what they liked about being a boy. She says most drew a blank. "That's interesting," said one college student. "I never really thought about that." You hear a lot more about what is wrong with guys. If broader society does not have a positive story to tell boys and young men about who they should be, we should not be surprised by the appeal of people like Andrew Tate, who does. In this sense, Tate is a successor to Jordan Peterson, the Canadian psychologist. His 2018 book, 12 Rules for Life, sold more than 5 million copies. When Peterson goes on a book tour, he packs venues like the O2 Center or Wembley Stadium. By Peterson's own reckoning, young men account for 80% of his readers and audiences. I see Peterson as a giant listening ear, towards which millions of men have flocked. And I expect many liberals will look more kindly on Peterson now that Andrew Tate has burst onto the scene. Just as they got all dewy-eyed for the once hated George W. Bush during the presidency of Donald Trump. Peterson has offered some opinions that many progressives find objectionable, but he's milquetoast by comparison to Tate. What's driving the popularity of Peterson and Tate? as well as other figures like the podcaster Joe Rogan. However, is the same thing, a desperate need for some positive, male-specific guidance, which is now missing in mainstream culture.
Okay, they put Joe Rogan in there? I wouldn't put Joe Rogan in there, but see, they're putting big names in there because if the message comes from these big names, it's more acceptable and it's reaching a larger audience, and they are scared shitless. But we all know where this message has really been coming from. These red pill guys on the other side of the spectrum, yet the message was not as it wasn't the same as what's coming out of the Black Manosphere. And you hear a lot of people who are basically coming from a feminine perspective saying that basically, we don't believe in the community and we're not pro-black enough and, all of that stuff. But, basically they're just taking an approach where they're softer on these women and the lack of attention that's being focused on black men, but if you're not gonna, be a part of this movement, then just sit off to the side, and let what needs to be done be done. So it seems, that when the message comes from, white folks, it's listened to a little bit more attentively than when it comes from us. But so be it. As long as the message gets out there. They're not trying to make any of our names big, but I guarantee you that if Kevin was still alive, he would be in this article. Right alongside Tate, and Peterson, because he would be as big, I think, if he was still alive right now. And the message is still going on, And I think that's a good thing. I think that Kevin's message, he made enough content to make an impact. And I think it's going to be an impact that's going to be felt for a long time, and kudos to that. I can't say how pleased I am about that, as well as Dr. Curry's work. I hope that he does, more books that expose some of this on so many different levels. He's constantly putting out articles that come from all different forms of research that are basically saying things that, he said in his book. But these people say that, he's a fruitcake because he put these things in the book, but then he pulls from all kinds of different research that says the exact same thing. He brings the receipts from his research. So that's what we all have to do. We all should, have receipts. We should have the research to back up what we say, have the numbers, because they're going to come with feelings and you just have to come with facts. You have to come with facts and evidence, because we can't make decisions based on how these folks feel. We have to make decisions based off of rock solid facts, science, and the statistics from the hard work that's been done.
We have torn up the old script for femininity, restricted to marriage and motherhood, and replaced it with a new expansive, empowering script for girls and women. You can be anything you want to be, from stay-at-home mother to prime minister and everything in between. We have also torn up the old script for masculinity, based on providing for and protecting women and children. But we haven't replaced it with a new, positive masculine script. That has created a dangerous cultural vacuum, one that figures like Andrew Tate are only too happy to fill. Tate is providing, or rather performing, a script for masculinity. But it's not a new one, or a particularly positive one in general, and it certainly won't work in a world of gender equality. Most of the men watching his videos know this to be the case. But where else are they supposed to look? If we don't like Tate's script, we need to provide a better one, rather than simply railing against theirs. It is a fact of human history that mature masculinity is more socially constructed than femininity. The idea of a crisis of femininity is hard to imagine, since the process of bearing, giving birth to, and feeding children is a strong component of feminine identity that is hard to disrupt. The role of men in reproduction is obviously less direct, and so the rites of passage to mature masculinity are less grounded in biology than in culture. As the anthropologist Margaret Mead wrote, every known human society rests firmly on the learned nurturing behavior of men. But as she warned, this behavior, being learned, is fragile, and can disappear rather easily under social conditions that no longer teach it effectively. The cultural task of helping growing boys to become good men can't be neglected. A new script for prosocial masculinity can celebrate some of the natural traits that occur more often in boys and men, such as physical courage and an appetite for risk. The fact that men are more likely to sacrifice their lives to save others is not, thankfully, of everyday relevance, but when it happens, we should be careful to honor it appropriately. Likewise, if men are, on average, more willing to take risks in the service of exploration or profit, the benefits should be celebrated. A positive script for masculinity ought also to highlight the vital role of fathers as providers not only of material goods, but of care, teaching, and mentorship. It should also validate the greater interest of boys and men on average on things rather than people, for example in technology or engineering. It requires a recognition that men and women are in fact different, and that neither is intrinsically superior to the other. The future as female is not a good rallying cry, at least for boys and men. But of course this new script for masculinity has to be compatible with gender equality. We cannot rescue men by repressing women. Masculinity needs...
Exactly. But why is it that every time, we talk about masculinity, then women get nervous and think that means that we are against, female progress. We're not. But you don't have to, it doesn't have to be a war. Females are actually out here just actively against anything that's that's masculine, anything that has to do with a man. Why can't we have black girl magic and all of that and also have funding for boys and, fund things like, My Brother's Keeper? Why can't we have those things at the same time rather than having all of these, these PhD level women coming out and basically saying that you can't have this, and if you do this and this is only for boys, then we're going to take it all the way to the Supreme Court and say that it's not inclusive for women. So you have to have women in everything now, even though it might not be something that women can actually do. You have to put a woman in there to show that it's open and that you're not discriminating against women, even though men and women are different in so many different ways, down to the cellular level in some cases. So, it just doesn't make any sense. And the time for this adversarial type behavior between men and women has to stop. Something has to be done.
The script. The only question is who is writing it. If we don't want it to be Tate, it has to be mainstream institutions and culture. As Daniel Schwamenthal, director of the American Jewish Committee's Transatlantic Institute, says, the iron rule of politics is that if there are real problems in society and responsible parties don't deal with them, the irresponsible parties will jump on them. It is time for mainstream institutions to deal with this crisis of masculinity directly. If not, when we are looking for someone to blame for the rise of Andrew Tate, we might have to look in the mirror.
This characterization of Andrew Tate like he's a villain is interesting. I just saw where he was in a European country and all these men were just out there, and he said it was like thousands of them, and they were all out there, chanting for him, and this scares people because he has a following. These men are embracing, men-centric programs. Man-centric, content. There is a market for it, and people are going for it. But that's because, I think, in part because, our colleges have failed us. These women's studies and all of this feminization of everything, and kill the patriarchy and all of that, and all this mythology that's just being woven into the fabric of society about men and how evil men are is just crazy. It's not true to history. So, that being said, these people, are terrified of Andrew Tate and terrified of his message, as if one man is going to change the way anything's done. They don't even want him to live his own life. They're saying that he's saying go out and get these, expensive cars and all of these, but he's not really saying that. He's saying, whatever you have and whatever you're doing, you strive for excellence. What's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. If you got fancy cars, fine, but he's still saying that you need to be a man and look out for your interest and focus on being, the best at whatever it is that you choose to do. And to carry yourself in a masculine way. I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's great. I checked out Matt Walsh's issues with him as well. And I think Matt's concerns are, I understand where he's coming from, but I don't necessarily think that Tate is anti-marriage and that he's anti-family. I think that there are times where men are out and they do things and they explore the world and they do reckless things, and then they have families. They slow down and they have families, and it makes them even better at being protectors and providers because, you go out there and you flex your brain, you work the muscles that you need to work in order to be better, and that's just something that men have always done historically. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close it out. I appreciate you guys coming out to the show and listening. I hope you guys enjoyed the article, and please hit that like, share, and subscribe button, like I said, and also that notification button, because I think I am not sending out notifications like it's supposed to, because I'm hearing that. I'm just hearing that a lot of people are not knowing when I'm putting out new shows. So, like I said, I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you guys with the next show.
I feel like a motherless child, a long way from home.